Hey there guys, this is Obsidian Chill. Got another video for today. And in this one, we're taking a closer look at the artifact M.E.R.C.Y Amazotron Matrix. Specifically, we're looking at the M.E.R.C.Y Reactive Field ability on it. So summoning a Trinket Pet summoning a Trinket Pet damages all nearby enemies, damage increased by 0, 25, 50, and 100% at rank 200. Now, before I get into the specifics here, there are two main points to remember or to know for this artifact, and that is that it does not stack with Eye of the Gemini, and it does not contribute to Rage's Berserk. So those are two main points that are somewhat limiting to it, but we'll show you why it can be very, very powerful as a swap artifact, especially if you're, not pet DPSing whatsoever. So, how this artifact works. You summon a pet, as long as you're in combat. I should maybe sure that's the third point, but normally in combat you wouldn't have to worry about that. But if you're just testing on the sparring targets, you need to be aware of that. And the range is, I believe, I'll double check here when I summon it, but that should be the range there. It's not max range, it's not melee, it's about mid range. So we're getting combat here. And it can work as a swap artifact. So just for this demonstration purposes, I'm just going to keep it on. So right now I'm going to summon so I've got two trinkets on. I've got the henchman, and we've got just a Legion drone tier 3. Now, be aware that there are some henchmen that this doesn't work for. A lot of it's the new one. It's just because I guess when henchmen get released, they have to be added to the list to proc Reactive Field, and it's just either it's a little bit behind or there's some missing. Like say for the Probe Tex henchman, the Probe Tex is one of the newer ones that doesn't work. But there are plenty to do. So definitely make sure, I can't test all henchmen. Well, actually, I could go through and double check, but still it's a lot of time on live server. But TBD on that. When I do my henchman pet trinket video damage, I'll make sure that I make like an asterisk if it does count toward the reactive field, and then I can always pass it along to M.E.R.C.Y as well. But for example, Dark Robins work for it. So right now I'm going to summon my pet trinket, as you saw right there. We'll just jump out of combat here for a sec. If I go to my logs, we see right there, M.E.R.C.Y Amazotron Matrix, damage sparring target for 200k. Now, what I'll do here, just to show you as well from the beginning, I'm just going to reset the cooldown on that one. The advantage is that you do not have to worry about going through the entire cooldown because the Trinket Pets and Henchmen are on separate, either separate internal cooldowns on the M.E.R.C.Y. So all you have to do, once the game kind of catches up here, all you have to do is wait 10 seconds and you can do back-to-back in terms of trinkets. So that's where the swap feature comes in handy. So right now, when I'm going to get in combat, we're going to proc M.E.R.C.Y on the pet trinket. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. There we go. And let's get a combat here to show you. So we go back up here. A crit for 500k on single target. And then it was 200k here. So just in 10 seconds, I did 700k damage on single target, just with basically a swap art. And then basically after that, you could swap either, depending on how efficient you are, you could basically swap it off in between that 10-second cooldown if you wanted to get advantage of like some more strategy card procs or like an Eye of Gemini if you're like a Prec DPS or whatever. Or you can just keep it on for the 10 seconds, then take it off. But that's all you need to do. To have this artifact on for 10 seconds, as long as your henchman and pet trinkets are lined for cooldown, you get a free 700k damage. Or the potential for more. Obviously, it is susceptible to crits, so you can have crits on both. So that's how that artifact works. All you have to do is wait that 10 seconds, and then swap back off, and then wait for the 4 minutes for the henchman to come off cooldown, or if you're swapping a Dead King for lowering those cooldowns. This is obviously not strong enough. If you're pet DPSing with like Source Shard, you're going to have this trinket on regardless. So then that may be beneficial for you to make sure that you have those 10 seconds or for when you have Godwave procs. But if you're like a Might DPS, Prec DPS, or any other non-pet DPSer, then you have the ability to level this up artifact just for some extra swap damage. And I know swapping is like a hot topic, but like I said, the reason why I go through these artifacts for you is that if you level them, I'm trying to make them useful to you. So if I have this artifact, if I'm not pet DPSing that I leveled an artifact to 200, that's basically going to sit there and do nothing. So at least now it's a valid investment. So that's the first point. The second point is how the damage is impacted by M.E.R.C.Y. So, spoiler alert, unfortunately for Pet DPS, the Reactive Field works similarly to Dead King Scepter's Orbital Assistance procs. That means it scales with might. So if you're a Pet DPS, you can still get the swap damage, obviously, but it's just going to be a lot lower. Reactive Field damage scales only with your might stat, but it also scales with the damage aspect of it. And what I mean by that is supercharges like Neo Venom Boost, Ice Elemental, Rageous Infuriate. So any kind of damage buff supercharge, it also is impacted by that. So it's impacted by your might stat and the damage stat. So for example, let me just pop this here. And I'll show this on AoE. I mean, it works on AoE as well. So say if I go back here on these targets, it just, for single target damage, obviously it can scale. I mean, I'll show some examples, but you can easily get in the hits in the 1 million damage just on single target, and it's going to all split on AoE. So it's still practical damage as well. So if I'm on AoE, we've got the Reactive Field going. I'll summon it. Let me just get out of combat here. So here we had a crit of 115k, 37k, 94k, 44k, 88k. So same thing. So all you have to do is swap that damage on whenever your trinket's off cooldown, which is 120 seconds, and you just got free, almost 500k damage, like 400 to 450k in that range. So that's basically free damage. All you're doing is basically swapping on your artifact, and then you know in combat, if you're might DPS at least, then you've got the claw buff, you've got the tetra buff. You've got sodas, you've got a mega. So all these stats also go up and scale with your stats as well. So it's just essentially just more free damage. And that's same thing on your henchmen. So if I wanted to do that for AoE, same concept. Let me just we'll show this example here. So let me put Neo Venom Boost on just for an example. So same thing. We've got M.E.R.C.Y on. We'll get in combat here. We'll pop Neo Venom Boost. And then we'll go pop the Henchman. So you saw there, we didn't get a crit on that unfortunately, but then the base damage increased to 300k, where before it was about 200k. Be nicer if we had a crit for them, but now we've got to switch characters to reset the cooldowns. But I'll show some examples up here on the screen too, while we're waiting. And these are some of the values that I've hit. Unfortunately, it doesn't show up in the combat log analyzer because I guess it's just how it's coded. I ran into this issue before with Batuba on some abilities, so it can't be tracked in the log analyzer. So you just have to have these log examples here. But the reason why I'm doing this as Ice is because Ice Elemental has that, the greater buff than Neo Venom Boost. So all you have to do is pop Ice Elemental. You can even go one step further, which I'll show here as an example. So we'll go Ice Elemental, DPS. Instead of Blizzard, we'll put Neo Venom Boost on. So we'll get in combat here. We're going to pop Ice Elemental. We're going to pop Neo Venom Boost. Those buffs will stack. Now if I do M.E.R.C.Y, that's a million hit there. Now if I wait the 10 seconds, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10. So that 10 seconds will count towards both. Obviously, Ice Elemental is 22 seconds, so you got plenty of time for that, but also counts for a Neo Venom Boost. So you guys just saw back to back there with those crits. The first crit, 1 million. Second crit, just on 970k. So just by summoning my pets, which you're going to do anyways in content, I just got 2 million damage free, just from the swap artifact. And I know it's still good. The timing is going to be, I'm not saying this is going to be perfect timing because obviously you're going to want to use either Gemini for your Ice Elemental swap. It's the same thing. You pop Ice Elemental when you, with Eye of the Gemini on. You have a choice. Either you can wait, because Eye of Gemini is 6 seconds. So you could do your rotation. You go up for the 6 seconds. Then when the Eye of Gemini procs, then you swap on M.E.R.C.Y, because you know it's not going to count anyways. And then you summon your pet trinkets. So if that's the option you're going to have to play around with. I mean, technically pet damage does count towards Eye of the Gemini anyway, but you've got that choice. So it's going to be up to you to find whatever rotation timing works the best for you. But I'm just letting you know about this ability. Now, it's going to count for Neon Venom Boost. It's going to count for, obviously, Ice Elemental. So for Ice, you can really... I mean, Ice Might is towards the upper end of meta right now anyway. If you want to compete with Perk DPS, you're going to be Ice Might, especially in the Eye Gemini spam groups. So this gives you already more advantage on the Perk DPS, because you've got this extra swap that you can work into your rotation. And make sure, obviously, you can't swap trans, because you need the critical boost as much as you can for M.E.R.C.Y, because that'll be the big difference there. But it gives you that second kind of swap artifact where you only have to swap it every 120 seconds for your pets, or every about 4 minutes for your henchmen, and then basically you have the potential to get millions of free damage over the course of the raid, millions of free damage on top of what you were already doing with your Ice Elemental rotation and or Neon Venom Boost. And same thing, you could just do, like for example here we've got one reset. We'll just show the Ice Elemental, because even myself, I prefer to kind of use Blizzard in Ice Elemental, especially for AoE situations. So you're not necessarily going to be using both of these just to basically inflate your M.E.R.C.Y damage. But if I was just using like Ice Elemental, I mean, same thing. We can, just to kind of show what a swap would be. So we've got Eye of the Gemini on. We'll get in combat. We'll proc Ice Elemental here. And then we can swap on M.E.R.C.Y and summon it. So as you saw, I still, and then if you want, we can go back out, pop Eye of the Gemini back on after the 10 seconds. Let me just get out of combat here so before we lose it in the log. But same thing. I mean, I could go back into my rotation, use Ice Elemental, then when the 6 seconds expires or procs on Gemini, swap on M.E.R.C.Y, 800k damage, swap off, and then repeat for when the henchmen come up. So it turns an artifact that you wouldn't think is useful, because you're not going to be using Robot Sidekick for pet damage, anything like that. It turns into a very high damage swap artifact to make it useful. And it's not an unrealistic swap anyway. I mean, whatever your pen comes up, you swap it, wait 10 seconds, hit your henchman, take it off. And then, because I mean, henchmen, I mean, the proc on M.E.R.C.Y is going to be 3 or 4 times the amount of damage you're going to get from sometimes out of your henchman itself. I mean, henchmen are not dealing 1 million damage on single target, not even remotely close. They're dealing like maybe 100, like 200k, 250k. So you get 3 times the amount of damage for M.E.R.C.Y proc. So that makes henchmen actually useful again, rather than just kind of whatever damage you're summoning. As long as you're doing it with the M.E.R.C.Y artifact, you can enhance that damage by by a factor of 3. It's the same thing. Let me just show, we'll pop on. So right now, before I do this, my might, about 170k. So we're going to we'll just take this, and we'll take Omega. Just as like a realistic raid scenario. And basically we won't even use, I mean, we'll use Neon Venom Boost, because that's more, I mean, if you rage, or you could use Infuriate. If you're ice, you can use Ice Elemental. But most, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be not those power sets. So you can use the Venom Boost. It's the same thing. We'll just wait for the pet trinket. We'll just pop on Dead King, drop that cooldown. So now we got both on cooldown. We'll get in combat here. So we'll start our rotation. Eye of the Gemini is procced. Now we can swap in M.E.R.C.Y. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There we go, summoned. Now we can swap it back on for the Gemini if we wanted to, and continue rotation. So just like that, we got, what was that, 700k damage just from that swap, and that's very simple enough, just to swap in between the Gemini procs on your Neo Venom boost, and then you wait the 10 seconds to pop the Henchman and Pet Trinket back to back. So just want to show you that, just ways to increase your damage basically for free, and then give you another artifact to consider leveling on a 2x weekend or any time that you have the available Nth Metal. So at least if you don't want to pet DPS and use the Restorative module and attack protocol and everything else, at least this Reactive Field proc can be viable for any DPS out there. So any other questions or concerns, put them in the comment section, and we'll see you in the next video.